Hi everyone, I'm Sam.
And I'm Kate. And we get asked a lot of questions about university fee status, and we hear a lot of myths and misconceptions. So we thought in this video we'd go through some of them and set the record straight.
So for the very first time, we've got our random myth generator. So let's see what myths it decides to give us today. Okay, I can see our first random myth, and it is a British passport guarantees you home fees.
It's not that simple, unfortunately. You may have a British passport, but there are other criteria that you need to meet in order to be eligible for home fees. So it's not that simple. And actually, you might have another passport, not a British passport, and you still might be eligible for home fees. So you might be an Irish passport holder, for example, or you might have indefinite leave to remain or right of permanent abode. Or you might have an EU passport and have settled or pre-settled status in the UK. So you can have lots of different types of passports and still be eligible for home fees. Actually, your passport doesn't tell us much about whether you are eligible for home fees.
I think that's the case. We speak to a lot of British nationals, British passport holders, and they may not be preparing because they're under this misunderstanding that they have the British passport and that's all they need, but it's not all you need to get home fees.
Yeah. Okay, so the next myth is you must live in the UK for 3 years to get home fees.
Yeah, this is a really common thing we hear a lot, and it's really understandable why people might think this, given the way that the fee status rules are written. But the good news, if you live outside of the UK, is this is not true. You don't have to live in the UK for that 3-year period. The rules actually refer to ordinary residents, and it might be possible for you to show how you are ordinarily resident in the UK, even if you live day to day outside of the UK. And there are also provisions to cover those that are living temporarily outside of the UK. If you're temporarily absent, you may be able to claim home fees on that basis also. Okay, what's the next myth? You can switch to home fees if you become eligible during your degree.
That might be possible for people in certain circumstances, but for the majority of people that we advise, that is not possible. So the fee status that you start your university degree course with is very likely to be the fee status that you are stuck with for the duration of your degree. So it's really important that when you're applying to university, if a university gives you a fee status that you don't think is correct, for example, they say that you're an overseas fee payer instead of a home fee payer, that you challenge that before you accept that offer, and you make sure you get the correct fee status before you start your degree.
I think that's a really key consideration, is that there has been recent changes to the rules and many people get confused about this, but it basically relates to immigration status. So if your immigration status changes after you start your course, it may be possible, but if you're a British citizen already, when you start your course, you'll be stuck with the same fee status for the entire duration.
Okay, the next myth generated. My friend got home fees, so I will too.
Yeah, you'd think this would be a reasonable assumption to make, but it's not a safe assumption. And if you do follow this strategy, then you could run into real problems because there are many aspects of the fee status assessment that will be very unique to your own circumstances and will have an impact on getting home fees. And this could include which university you're applying to, which course you're applying to, whether you're applying to a university in England or perhaps in Scotland or elsewhere in the UK. And all of these things are very individual to your own application. So every application is going to be unique in that respect. So you can't rely on what others have achieved as a good indicator on what your chances may be. Here we go. We have another myth. We don't have to worry about fee status until we apply.
Actually, it might be too late by the time you're applying to university to think about fee status. The families that we work with and advise on fee status, we start supporting them around 4 years before they start university, because fee status takes a lot of time to prepare for and plan and gather evidence for. So if you are at the application stage already, it might be too late to actually get your home fee eligibility back. And we wouldn't recommend leaving it that late. We would recommend you think about it nice and early and get that support that you need.
That's it. And under the fee status rules, the universities have to assess your circumstances for 3 years before the university course starts. So you want to make sure you're always maintaining your eligibility during that crucial 3-year period.
Yeah. Okay, next myth. You need to own a property in the UK to get home fees.
This is not true. It may be that you are eligible for home fee status even if you don't own any property in the UK. With all aspects of fee status, one single thing is not going to determine whether or not you get home fee status. Universities will be looking at your whole case and all of your circumstances to determine whether you meet the eligibility rules.
Yeah, and in fact, you might own a property in the UK, but it might be rented out to somebody, and in which case that might not help your case. You might not be able to use that to show your connection to the UK. So just the fact that you own a property or not doesn't determine whether you're going to get home fees or not.
Yeah, I think it's very dangerous to use rules of thumb to identify what your outcome might be. It's much broader than that.
Yeah.
We've got another myth, and that is a fixed term contract guarantees me home fee status.
Okay, so this might be when your fixed term employment contract abroad could help you show that you're temporarily absent from the UK and therefore still eligible for home fees. So that might be a very successful way to show that you're still eligible. But this is a very discretionary point depending on the universities that the student is applying to. Some universities might accept that, some might not. In the case where someone is on multiple fixed term contracts, perhaps they've been abroad for many, many years, the university might take the decision not to accept that. So unfortunately, that item of evidence alone in your case is unlikely to get you home fees. And with all things in a fee status case, it's usually a collection of lots of different things about your background that determine whether you get home fees or not just one item of evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, and our last myth. Having a golden visa in Dubai means you can't get home fees.
Yeah, I think this statement again exposes the misunderstanding of how a fee status assessment works, because just one single thing is not going to be the difference between getting home fees and getting overseas fees in most people's circumstances. So having a golden visa in the UAE may have a big impact on some people's cases and could be really significant in how universities assess their case. But equally, depending on the other circumstances they have, it could have no impact at all in terms of how the universities are looking at their eligibility. So this is certainly not true. A golden visa doesn't mean that you cannot get home fees, but you'd need to look closely in how it will affect your own eligibility. Well, that's covered all the myths today, so thank you so much for joining us. Hope you found this informative and interesting. So where can you find out more about fee status?
Well, a really good place to start is our fee status checker, which is a really quick, easy online tool that you can use. You can do it from our website, and it gives you some immediate results about whether you might be eligible for home fees, and that's a good place to start. Yeah.
So get started today, do the fee status checker, nice and easy, and goodbye. We'll see you next time.